The supply chain strategy that Amazon built its logistics empire on, staged disclosure, distributed trust networks, price intelligence before entering a market, was already running on the Silk Road in 200 BC. The merchants who engineered it had no computers, no contracts that crossed international borders, no courts that could enforce anything beyond the city walls. What they had was a set of 15 trading rules so precise, so mechanically sound, that modern logistics companies are quietly copying them right now without even knowing where they came from. This is a forensic autopsy of those rules. Not trade history as a story, trade history as an engineering problem, and the solutions these merchants built are more sophisticated than most people working in business today will ever realize. First, understand the operating environment. The Silk Road stretched roughly 7,000 miles from Chang'an to the Mediterranean. A single caravan trip took 6 months to a year. No international courts existed. A merchant cheated in Kashgar had zero legal recourse against a counterparty in Samarkand. Bandits patrolled desert passes. Imperial toll collectors taxed cargo at rates that could wipe out margin entirely. Temperatures in the Taklamakan Desert swung from 120 degrees Fahrenheit to -40. A bolt of Chinese silk worth a few dollars at production could sell for 50 times that price in Rome. Every trick on this list is a solution to a specific, documented problem. Trick 1. Staged disclosure. When a caravan arrived at a trading city, the lead merchant never revealed what was actually in the cargo. He would approach local buyers claiming to carry ordinary goods, wool, grain, common cloth. Only after gathering intelligence on who was buying, at what prices, and what the competition was carrying, would he reveal the high-value silk, spices, or lapis lazuli hidden deeper in the load. The problem this solved was brutal and simple. In a market where you are a stranger and your counterparty has been trading in that city for decades, revealing your cargo first hands every negotiating advantage to the buyer. Amazon's logistics team calls a version of this asymmetric information management. The merchant who invented it called it survival. Trick 2. The Sogdian Intelligence Network. The Sogdians were a Central Asian people from the region of modern Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and between roughly the 4th and 8th century CE, they dominated East-West trade so completely that their language became the commercial lingua franca of the entire Silk Road. Their secret was not the goods they carried, it was information. Sogdian merchants maintained a living network of agents, family members, paid contacts, diaspora communities, posted at cities all along the route. Before a caravan departed Samarkand, the lead merchant already knew the current silk price in Dunhuang, which buyers in Kashgar were overpaying for camphor, and whether the Tang governor at the next checkpoint was accepting bribes. The Sogdian ancient letters, discovered in a watchtower near Dunhuang in 1907 and dated to around 313 CE, are the physical evidence of this system. Paper dispatches covering commodity prices, debts owed, market conditions, and logistical requests sent ahead of the caravan across thousands of miles. Modern hedge funds spend billions building proprietary market data networks. The Sogdians built the same thing out of paper and kinship obligation, and it worked for 4 centuries. Stage disclosure was only the defensive half. The offensive half was what happened when a merchant arrived at the toll checkpoint, an evasion strategy modern supply chain managers study in textbooks without knowing the source. Trick 3. Route arbitrage. Imperial taxation points sat at every major gateway city. The Tang dynasty in China, the Sasanian Empire in Persia, and the Byzantine Empire all taxed cargo at fixed checkpoints. Merchants who paid every toll could see 30 to 40% of their profit margin disappear before reaching the final buyer. The solution was cartographic intelligence, knowing the alternative paths. The Silk Road was not a single road. It was a braided network of routes, and merchants maintained detailed knowledge of which paths bypassed which taxation zones, which nomadic tribal territories could be crossed with a gift rather than an imperial toll payment, and which mountain passes opened in summer that cut 3 weeks off a journey while avoiding the main checkpoint entirely. When the Ottoman Empire eventually made its taxation so punishing in the 15th century that it killed overland trade entirely, it only accelerated a process merchants had been managing for 1,000 years. Modern logistics companies call this practice tariff engineering. Ancient merchants called it knowing the map better than the tax collector did. Trick 4. The Hawala system. Moving physical gold or silver across 7,000 miles of desert, mountain, and contested territory was not a logistics problem. It was a death sentence. Bandits targeted precious metals specifically because they were universally liquid. The solution the Silk Road merchants engineered in the 8th century was so elegant that it still operates today in parts of South Asia, the Middle East, and East Africa. The Hawala Dari system worked like this. A merchant in Baghdad would hand a specified amount of gold to a local broker, the Hawaladar, That broker would send a coded message, often just a number or a token, to a partner broker in Samarkand. The merchant, traveling without any gold whatsoever, would arrive in Samarkand and collect an equivalent amount from the second broker. No gold moved. No promissory note was exchanged. The entire transaction ran on honor, and the knowledge that cheating a hawaladar meant permanent exclusion from the network, which meant commercial death. The SWIFT international banking system, built in 1973, solved the exact same problem. How do you move value across borders without moving physical currency? The Hawala network solved it 1,200 years earlier. The mechanics are almost identical. The enforcement mechanism is completely different, and the Silk Road version is arguably more resilient because it requires no central infrastructure to attack. Trick 5. The Comenda Contract. Here is the problem. A wealthy merchant in Samarkand wants the profit from a Dunhuang trade run but cannot physically travel 2,500 miles to execute it. A young, mobile merchant wants to make the run but lacks the capital to buy a meaningful cargo. The Comenda Contract solved this in a single instrument. The investor provided the capital. The traveling merchant provided the labor and expertise. Profits were split at an agreed ratio, typically 75% to the investor, 25% to the merchant, and crucially, losses fell primarily on the investor's contributed capital, not on the traveling merchant's personal assets. This is the exact structural DNA of modern venture capital and private equity. The limited partner puts in the money and absorbs the downside. The general partner operates the investment and keeps a carry. When Italian merchant bankers in Genoa and Venice formalized the Comenda in the 12th century, they were not inventing a new instrument. They were codifying a practice that had been running on the Silk Road for centuries under Arabic and Persian variants called the Kirad and Mudaraba. The Silk Road did not just move silk, it moved the intellectual infrastructure of modern capital markets. Trick 6. The Flying Money System. The Tang Dynasty formalized what merchants had been doing informally for generations, depositing coin in one city and receiving a paper certificate redeemable at a partner agent in another. The Chinese called it feiqian, literally flying money. A merchant heading from Chang'an to Dunhuang could deposit 500 copper coins with a government-licensed agent, carry a paper slip that weighed nothing, walk through bandit country with nothing worth stealing, and collect equivalent value on arrival. This is the prototype of the modern bill of exchange, the precursor to the letter of credit that still underpins international trade finance today. J.P. Morgan issues letters of credit. The Tang Dynasty issued feiqian. The functional mechanism is the same instrument across 1,300 years. Trick 7. Caravan size as a calculated decision. Common sense says bigger is safer. More guards, more resources. But bigger caravans moved slower. Typically 2 to 3 miles per hour for 9 hours a day, consumed more at each stop, and were far more conspicuous targets for large-scale raids. Small caravans moved faster and could take narrower bypass routes unavailable to large convoys. Experienced merchants made caravan-sized decisions the way modern fleet logistics managers make routing decisions. Speed versus security, visibility versus stealth, calibrated to the specific threat environment of each leg. High-risk segments through contested territory warranted large convoys. Lower-risk segments through stable territory went to small fast groups. That is exactly what modern security logistics firms do today. Trick 8. Distributed cargo across multiple animals. Silk Road merchants never loaded their most valuable goods into a single container. High-value items were distributed across multiple animals, multiple bundles, buried within layers of ordinary cargo. If one camel was taken by bandits, the loss was partial rather than total. This is the physical world version of portfolio diversification. Modern supply chains call it distributed inventory. Amazon's warehouse network, with its thousands of fulfillment centers holding redundant stock across geographies, is the same principle at the scale of a continent. Trick 9. The reputation network as enforcement mechanism. Without enforceable international contracts, Silk Road merchants built a substitute legal system out of reputation. Among the Sogdians, a merchant who defaulted on a debt in Dunhuang would find his family in Samarkand cut off within months. Credit gone, children excluded from commercial partnerships. The entire network, spanning 7,000 miles, operated as a single reputation ledger. The Radhanite Jewish traders ran the same system between the 8th and 10th centuries. Spices, silk, luxury goods, through Christian and Muslim territories, trusted intermediary to both. Their neutrality was not religious sentiment, it was a commercial asset. Modern platform economies run on identical architecture. eBay's seller ratings, Airbnb's host reviews, Uber's driver scores, reputation ledger systems enforcing behavior without courts. The Sogdians built it in the 4th century CE. Trick 10. Gift giving as a strategic financial instrument. What looked like generosity in a 7th century turf and caravanserai was precision tool use. A fine gift to a city governor, rare silk, imported spice, an object unavailable through his own trade channels, was not bribery. It was relationship capitalization. The obligation it created translated into preferential storage rates, a guard escort, advance warning of tax increases, or a faster inspection that saved 2 days. Genghis Khan sealed political alliances with sable coats. Roman merchants gave glassware. Modern corporate gift-giving guidelines exist because this tool is so effective that regulators felt the need to legislate against it. Trick 11. Technology secrecy as a source of absolute monopoly. China maintained a state secret around silk production for roughly 3,000 years. The penalty for smuggling silkworms or mulberry seeds out of the country was death. Guards at the borders searched travelers for eggs. The entire profit structure of the Eastern Silk Road depended on this one piece of operational security. China held the production monopoly, and every merchant between Chang'an and Rome extracted margin from moving that product. When Byzantine Emperor Justinian sent 2 monks as industrial spies around 552 CE to steal silkworm eggs hidden inside hollow bamboo canes, the operation broke that monopoly. Within decades, Byzantine silk production undermined the entire trade infrastructure built around Chinese supply exclusivity. This is documented industrial espionage, one of the earliest recorded cases in history, and it demonstrates exactly why modern companies treat trade secret protection with the same intensity they treat physical security. A secret process is a monopoly. Lose the secret, lose the monopoly. Trick 12. Relay trading versus full route trading. Most Silk Road merchants did not travel the entire 7,000 miles. They traveled a segment, perhaps Samarkand to Dunhuang or Antioch to Alexandria, and sold their goods to the next segment specialist. This relay model created an ecosystem of local expertise. A merchant who knew the Fergana Valley terrain, its water sources, its checkpoint officials, its seasonal hazards, better than any full route traveler ever could. The relay trader extracted margin not from the full journey, but from deep operational expertise on a single segment. Modern supply chains call this third-party logistics, the deliberate outsourcing of route segments to specialists who know their specific geography better than the originating company ever will. Trick 13. The Caravanserai as intelligence hub and financial clearinghouse. Caravanserais were engineered for commercial function, not hospitality. Merchants sharing a stop exchanged road conditions, bandit activity, checkpoint behavior, and commodity prices from cities they had just left. Administrators collected and sold this intelligence. By morning, a skilled merchant had updated price data, road intelligence, and credit clearance from a single overnight stop. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange performed the same function in the 19th century, a physical place where distributed information aggregated into actionable market intelligence. Trick 14. Linguistic arbitrage. The Sogdians were functionally multilingual: Sogdian, Chinese, Persian, Turkic, Syriac. The Radhanites used Hebrew as a neutral commercial language across Christian and Muslim territories. Language was not a cultural feature. It was a transaction cost reduction tool. A merchant negotiating directly in a buyer's language cut out a translator who typically extracted 5 to 15% as an interpretation fee. More importantly, language access meant direct access to local market intelligence invisible to merchants operating through intermediaries. Modern multinationals face the same calculation. The math has not changed since the 6th century. Trick 15. Multi-commodity cargo composition. A caravan carrying only silk was betting its entire margin on the silk market conditions in the destination city. Experienced Silk Road merchants deliberately mixed their cargo. Silk alongside camphor, camphor alongside lapis lazuli, lapis lazuli alongside medicinal herbs. If silk prices had collapsed by the time they arrived because 2 competing caravans got there first, the other commodities buffered the loss. This is commodity diversification as a logistics strategy rather than a financial one. Modern retailers carry this logic into their store assortment planning. Never concentrate exposure to a single product category because markets move faster than supply chains can. Not one of these 15 tricks required a computer, a central bank, a court system, or a government. They ran on mechanical logic, network architecture, and catastrophic consequences for cheating. When supply chains break today, port backlogs, single supplier collapses, the conversation turns to resilience, redundancy, distributed trust, and information velocity. Silk Road merchants solved every one in conditions that would destroy most modern logistics operations. The engineers who came after them did not improve the fundamental architecture. They just gave it better hardware. So tell me in the comments, which of these 15 tricks surprised you most? My money is on the Hawala system. because the idea that medieval merchants built a functional alternative to international banking 1,000 years before banking existed is the kind of thing that should be in every business school curriculum and somehow never is. If this changed how you think about ancient trade, hit that like button and send it to someone who works in logistics or finance, because they will recognize every single one of these systems. And subscribe if you want more forensic breakdowns like this, because next week we are going inside the engineering of the Persian Qanat system, 3,000-year-old underground aqueducts that irrigated entire civilizations, and the exact structural principles that modern water engineers are now reverse engineering to solve drought problems today.